In the darkness of the school, a poor student fell from the roof, ending his life. Blood flowed like a river, blending with the moonlight to create a gloomy atmosphere. Unfinished exam papers surrounded the victim's body. The killer up on the rooftop was scared and ran away. The sound of the door slamming shut pierced the hearts. The victim's parents still didn't know where their son was. They were worried about where he'd gone. Inha tried to contact the parents of her son's best friend, but no one answered. Her husband casually gazed at the moon, forgetting that he was driving. Luckily, Inha screamed and warned her husband about the car ahead. He slammed on the brakes and avoided a crash. They went home, worried sick. Inha couldn't reach her son. It was 10:30 p.m., and he still wasn't home. She called Young Cheol's mom and asked if he was there, but he said he hadn't seen her son. Then she called Jun Seok's mom, but no one answered. She wanted to talk to Jun Seok, but she got rejected. When she tried to call again, no one answered. Then the hospital called to say her son had been admitted in critical condition. They were shocked. He was rushed into emergency surgery. His mom couldn't believe it. Inha's sister rushed to her house. She needed to calm her niece down. Tears of grief started to flow. The homeroom teacher came to the hospital after hearing the news. He had no idea what had happened. Just then, a police officer arrived to take statements. The officer coldly asked, "Was your son trying to kill himself?" Inha couldn't control herself. "Why did my son do that? Sunho was a good kid. He was always smiling. We had breakfast together this morning. He and his dad were going to watch the moon tonight. He would never do anything like that." The officer felt for them, but all the security cameras around the school were broken. They found Sunho's shoes on the roof. Inha collapsed when she heard that. She couldn't believe it. The doctors were doing everything they could to operate on him, but he had a slim chance of survival. Outside the operating room, Inha was kneeling, begging God to save her son. Her husband was holding her, devastated. After 3 hours of surgery, the doctors managed to save him, but his brain was so badly damaged that he could end up in a vegetative state. The odds of him regaining consciousness were slim. Inha collapsed when she heard that. She couldn't stand seeing her son lying there unconscious in pain. Her cries of grief echoed through the hospital. At the same time, his mom accidentally saw his phone ringing nonstop at Young Cheol's house. She looked at it and saw a video on the roof. She was shocked when she saw her son involved in a fight. Young Cheol walked in. His mom was furious. She asked, "Did you bully the victim?" He said, "It was just a prank." She was furious that her son was involved. Instead of apologizing, he tried to deny it. But he wasn't the only one. Jun Seok was relaxing at his luxurious mansion. The next day, Jun Seok's mom was terrified when she saw her husband come home. He was the CEO of a billion-dollar corporation. He'd heard about the student's suicide. He ordered the school to keep it under wraps. He didn't want his son to be affected. His mom looked at her son, disappointed. He walked in and asked, "Was Sunho close to you?" "The police are coming to get your statement today." Jun Seok was terrified when he heard the word police. His dad reassured him, "It's just a formality. I'll handle everything." After his son went upstairs, his mom asked, "How's the victim doing?" He coldly said, "The victim will never wake up." Meanwhile, Inha was heartbroken. She was thinking about her son on that fateful day. He tried to say something to her, but she'd ignored him because she was busy with work. She blamed herself. She thought it was her fault that he'd done something so stupid. The news of the student's suicide made the homeroom teacher the target of criticism. The vice principal blamed everything on him. He wanted all the teachers to keep it a secret. If they didn't, the school's reputation would be ruined. The teacher wanted to change how the vice principal wanted to cover everything up. It wasn't just the teachers who were freaking out. Sunho's friends were panicking. They were scared that their group chat messages would be exposed, so they deleted all the evidence. A new school day began. The teacher announced that Sunho had had an accident last night. The kids started talking. Was he bullied? The teacher said, "The police are going to come and question each of you." Just then, the school supervisor walked in and asked, "Did anyone find Sunho's phone?" The kids were scared when he mentioned the phone. The messages on Sunho's phone hadn't been deleted. As soon as the class meeting ended, a bullied girl went to see the homeroom teacher. She couldn't believe Sunho had killed himself. He was the only one in class who was nice to me. Right then, Sunho's parents arrived at the school. They wanted to get involved in the investigation, but the vice principal stopped them. He kept trying to push the narrative that it was suicide. But Inha insisted, "My son would never do that." Her husband tried to stop her. He was a teacher too and understood the school's difficulties. He wanted the school to investigate thoroughly, but said the priority was his son's health. Sunho's little sister was also heartbroken. She stood at the scene of the incident, sobbing. The security guard came over to comfort her. He said, "Students aren't allowed near here." But when he found out she was the victim's sister, he felt guilty. He was the one who discovered the body and called the police. Not just the security guard, but also Young Cheol's mom felt guilty. Every time she saw Inha, she wanted to tell her the truth. Just when she was about to talk about the video, her son texted her, and begged her to keep it a secret. She wanted to protect her son, so she kept it quiet. In-ha thanked her for her kind words. It made her feel terrible. The kids at school didn't feel any remorse. They kept blaming each other for the video. Jun Seok threatened the others. Don't tell the police. One by one, the kids were called to talk to the police privately. But because Jun Seok had greased some palms, they all said Sunho was under pressure about his grades. Only the chubby kid didn't follow the script. He said the victim always acted dramatic when helping others, especially the girl who was being ostracized. That made the police suspect that Sunho had a problem with a classmate. Then it was Jun Seok's turn. He admitted that he had a problem with the victim. He said he'd been bullying the girl who was being ostracized, and it caused friction between him and Sunho. But he also said that he'd made up with Sunho. The interrogation was over. A lot of parents called the school principal, worried about their kids. After the investigation at school, the school board went out to eat with the CEO. The teacher was angry because they were trying to cover everything up, but he didn't have the power to protect his students. He stormed out of the room. Every day, Sunho's family lived in insecurity. The police concluded that it was suicide. In-ha was devastated to hear the results. The family asked the police to investigate again, but they refused because they couldn't find enough evidence. They concluded that the victim was under pressure about his grades. In-ha was furious. The police were so quick to jump to conclusions. The police showed them the evidence they'd found at the scene. In-ha hugged the box, crying. Suddenly, she remembered something. She ran after the police. They looked down at her feet in surprise. She was in such a hurry. She'd forgotten her shoes. Based on her hunch, the fact that all the cameras at the school were broken and her son's phone was missing, there were too many coincidences. The police were annoyed when In-ha said the crime scene was staged. She was furious that the police weren't doing their job. Her grief wouldn't allow her to sit back. Her meek husband tried to comfort her, but she was determined to investigate on her own, even if it took 10 years or 100 years. When she got home, In-ha was furious when she heard the neighbors gossiping about her son. She was ready to give them a piece of her mind, but her husband stopped her. He gently took her hand and walked past the gossipy woman. He wanted her to rest for a few days. He'd handle everything. In-ha started to put her son's belongings back in order. She hugged his shoes and cried. After calming down, she remembered that on the day of the incident, her son had come back home to grab something. Seeing how hurried he was, In-ha guessed that whatever he took was related to the case. She tried to find his notebook, but it was gone. It was like a diary. She quickly told her husband. The diary and his phone might be important clues. Just then, her daughter's homeroom teacher called. He told her that her daughter had gotten into a fight with a classmate. Her husband wanted their daughter to apologize, but she said she hadn't done anything wrong. In-ha was annoyed when she heard the other parent's attitude. She calmly asked why the two kids had fought, but the other parent kept blaming In-ha's daughter. Her daughter said seriously, "If the other girl apologizes to me, I'll apologize to her." The other parent was furious that her daughter dared to argue. In-ha's daughter was angry because the other kids had insulted her brother. In-ha didn't want to talk to the woman anymore when she found out the reason. But the woman still wanted to make trouble. In-ha said, "Get out. I'm going to be alone with this hag." In-ha threatened her. "If you open your mouth again, you're going to meet the same fate." Seeing In-ha's serious expression, the woman didn't say another word. After leaving the meeting room, In-ha went to her daughter. She apologized to the classmate on her behalf. The classmate felt bad. This act of kindness changed her. The other mom was surprised to see her daughter hugging In-ha. Meanwhile, her husband had already taken their daughter outside. He didn't want her to be violent, but she was tougher than he thought. "Why do you always apologize first? That's why you couldn't protect my brother." He was shocked. He thought back to memories with his son. Even when others did something wrong, he was the one who apologized. Now he understood what his son had been saying. Seeing his daughter grow up, the dad felt ashamed. He took her somewhere and bumped into Jun Seok's mom. She asked about Sunho's condition. He had no idea that the woman in front of him had witnessed his son fall from the roof on that fateful night. She had been at the school to pick up Jun Seok. Instead of calling the police right away, she'd kept quiet. Now, when she was checking her son's jacket, she found a button from the victim's shirt. Terrified, she flushed it down the toilet to get rid of it. Guilt was eating away at her. Right then, the CEO came over and saw her panicking. He got suspicious. When she left, he saw the button in the toilet. But instead of asking her why, he helped her get rid of the evidence. At the same time, In-ha went to her son's classroom. She asked the teacher to take her to meet the kids who were friends with her son. Jun Seok got worried when he saw Sunho's mom. She said she wanted to talk to them, to avoid suspicion. He agreed. In-ha asked the teacher to open her son's locker. She was emotional looking at her son's belongings. The kids outside were worried to see her looking for something, but she couldn't find his diary. She begged the teacher to help her, but he couldn't do anything. She asked to talk to them alone for a few minutes. They all looked down, afraid to look at her. She asked if anyone had bullied her son, but they said they didn't know. She tried to ask Jun Seok if he knew anything. but he said he'd been hanging out with Sunho less lately. The kids were surprised that Jun Seo could lie like that. Just then, the vice principal walked in. He was angry that In-ha was questioning the kids and trying to uncover the truth. He told her to come to his office. He didn't want her to affect the other students. In-ha left, frustrated. But when she saw where her son had fallen, she asked the security guard if she could go to the roof. She wanted to feel what her son had felt. She walked to the railing and started crying. The security guard looked at her with guilt. Meanwhile, the dad got his son's call log. He noticed something weird, so he asked an employee to find the address of the number. Strangely enough, it was near the school where the dad worked. He went to see the police and told them what he'd found, but the cop was annoyed. He didn't want to reopen the case. No matter how hard the dad tried to explain, the cop insisted that it was suicide. He left, dejected. He felt terrible. He should have answered his son's calls. He'd ignored them, worrying about his students. As fate would have it, the student was the brother of the girl who'd been bullied. He knew Sunho had an accident, but the girl was sure he didn't kill himself. At the same time, Sunho's little sister found his schedule. She went to the flower shop to ask for more information. The owner said, Sunho bought flowers for his girlfriend, but an hour later, I saw him come back. He looked heartbroken like he'd just been dumped. Her brother's face flashed before her eyes. Tears started to flow. Then, she went to the hospital to visit him, but she didn't dare go into the room. Just then, her dad arrived. She told him that her brother had bought flowers on the day of the accident. When she got back to the bakery, the teacher called. He told her that the phone number her husband had found was the same as the student's. However, the student had dropped out of school for unknown reasons. The vice principal was blaming the teacher for helping her. In-ha wanted to talk to the student, but the teacher stopped her. The student's parents didn't want their son to be shocked. Just then, Jun Seok's mom came to the hospital to visit. Instead of caring for the victim, she wanted to pull out his breathing tube, but she was too guilty to do it. In-ha still didn't know what she was really like. She was grateful she'd come to visit. Just as she was about to leave, Jun Seok's mom overheard the doctor's diagnosis. The victim was recovering well and could be transferred to a different room. This made her nervous. Then In-ha asked her to help find the diary. She still hadn't given up on finding the truth. On her way home, Jun Seok's mom called someone to find the notebook, but nobody knew where it was. In-ha couldn't sleep because she missed her son so much. She was looking at old pictures of him on her phone, lost in her memories when she got a text message from an unknown number. She hesitated before clicking it. She was shocked and screamed when she saw the video. She couldn't believe her son was being bullied. They beat him up so badly. Sunho kept getting hit, and it broke In-ha's heart. He was such a good kid. He'd always been surrounded by love and protection. They were so cruel to him. He tried to fight back, but they were too many. Even when he begged them to stop, they kept hitting him. In-ha was furious. Her son had been through hell. Her heart-wrenching screams woke her husband. He was startled when he saw her slumped on the floor. Why didn't you answer your son's calls? Why did you let them beat him up? After watching the video, the husband was furious. He hated himself for not protecting his son. Early the next morning, In-ha went to Young Cheol's house to confront him. His mom was scared when she saw how angry In-ha was. What's going on? In-ha looked at Young Cheol's mom coldly. What did you tell those parents last night? It turned out that the night before, Young Cheol's mom had shown the video to the other parents. She wanted them to come with her to apologize to In-ha, but they didn't want their kids to get involved. They convinced her to keep the video a secret. Young Cheol's mom was still pretending. In-ha was so disappointed with her hypocrisy. She shouted for Young Cheol to come out. As soon as he opened the door, she stormed in and asked, "Why did you do this to Sunho?" He didn't seem sorry at all and said, "It was just a fun game." In-ha was furious and slapped him. His mom jumped in front of him. "We said it was just a game. Why are you hitting him?" But when she saw In-ha's pained expression, she said sorry. In-ha couldn't forgive them. She tried to control her anger and went back home. Just then, her daughter woke up. In-ha hesitated, wanting to talk about the video, but her daughter had heard everything from the night before. She couldn't face it, so she ran away. The kids at home also found out about the leaked video, but they weren't scared. Only Jun Seok was starting to panic. He went downstairs, looking serious. He confessed that he'd played a game with the victim. His dad came up with a plan to protect his son. The school's anti-bullying committee was having a meeting soon. Instead of hiding the video, he wanted his son to blame the other kid. Meanwhile, the dad was causing a ruckus at the police station. The cop was nervous when he saw the victim's family. The dad gave the cop the video of his son getting beat up. He wanted them to reopen the case, but the detective refused. "This case is being handled by someone else. I can't interfere." The dad left, disappointed. Seeing the dad's determination, the detective asked his subordinate to find out who sent the video. On his way home, the dad was furious. He remembered how his son had tried to tell him something, but he'd ignored him because he was busy. The car behind him kept honking, urging him to speed up. Then the driver pulled ahead and yelled at him. He was at his breaking point. He stepped on the gas and chased after him. cutting him off. He wanted to get all his anger out. After calming down, he went back home. In-ha was trying to stay strong after the shock. She needed to be tough to find out who had done this. The kids were still going to school, not feeling guilty at all. They had their parents backing them up. The CEO had found out that his wife had sent the video. He warned her, "Don't lie to me again." When she saw him casually hitting his employees, she was a little scared. Meanwhile, Sunho's little sister went to her brother's classroom. She wanted to attack the bullies, but then she changed her mind and went back to class. The girl who had been bullied stopped her. She was worried about Sunho's health. The little sister said, "My brother really cared about you, so you can come visit him anytime." At the same time, Sunho's parents went to the school. They wanted the school to hold a disciplinary hearing, but the school was trying to cover everything up. Even though the family had provided the video, the school board didn't do anything. The only person they could trust was the homeroom teacher. He couldn't believe the kids had beaten up their classmates. The dad told him he'd called the police. He asked him to cooperate and help. As soon as the parents left, the vice principal gave the teacher a hard time. He told him to report everything he knew. He wanted to turn the bullying into a kid's game. In-ha got back to the bakery and found out her daughter had skipped school. She was worried and called her, but no one answered. Jun-seok's mom was waiting outside. She was in a hurry, so she asked In-ha to wait for her to come back. In-ha was a mess. She was scared that her daughter had run away. When she calmed down, she asked Jun-seok's mom what she was doing there. The mom said, "My son watched Sunho get beat up. He didn't do anything." She was trying to justify her son's actions. Those words made In-ha trust her more. Meanwhile, at school, the teacher was questioning Jun-seok. He was angry that the kid was acting like a victim. He was so arrogant because his dad was protecting him. Word got out that In-ha was asking the anti-bullying committee to investigate. The other parents thought she was trying to cause trouble. To find the truth, Sunho's little sister got an address and went to visit her brother's girlfriend's house. But the mom stopped her. She threw the girl's flowers in the trash. From inside, the girl watched through the window. The little sister was angry, so she threw a rock and broke the window before running away. It was getting late and their daughter still wasn't home. They were worried. In-ha ran around looking for her, but couldn't find her. Suddenly, the flower shop owner called. "Your daughter's here." She rushed to the flower shop. She and her daughter talked about what had happened. She found out that she'd gone to her brother's girlfriend's house. Her daughter started crying, saying she'd just missed her brother so much. Seeing how heartbroken she was, In-ha hugged her and comforted her. It wasn't just the bullies who were being investigated. A lot of students were called to the principal's office. School bullying was real, but the other kids just ignored it because they were afraid. The police had found some helpful information. On the day Sunho was attacked, the security camera only showed him walking into school alone. After analyzing the footage, they realized he'd been communicating with his girlfriend from a different angle. They confirmed that the kids had been picked up by their parents. The dad was confused and asked, "Who sent this video?" But the police couldn't figure it out. In-ha was losing it. She wanted the police to talk to her son's girlfriend, but her parents wouldn't let her out of the house. They wanted her to forget everything. The investigation wasn't getting anywhere, and In-ha was losing hope. Her husband said, "Stop, please." But she couldn't. She wouldn't give up until she found out who'd done this. Feeling like a coward, the dad went to the school to ask around. The security guard hinted that many students had been sneaking in through the back gate since the accident. All the cameras had been replaced. As the dad was leaving, the chubby kid's dad showed up and caused a scene. He was drunk and yelling at the security guard. The teacher rushed over to stop him. The drunk guy was yelling, "Why are you letting the police suspect my son?" The teacher was furious. They were about to fight when the vice principal stepped in. Word got back to the CEO that someone was causing trouble at the school. He told his staff to come to his office immediately. The vice principal said, "There was no fight. It was just kids playing around." But the teacher argued, "If someone was bullied and then got suicidal, that's not a game." The CEO coldly asked, "You want the other students to be affected? What about the school's reputation?" To handle this, the CEO came up with a new plan. He needed to show everyone that this wasn't the school's fault. Meanwhile, the parents group went to the bakery and started making trouble. They thought In-ha was going too far. They said the police showing up at the school would scare the kids. In-ha was irritated. She snapped, "I'm going to see this through. Get out of here before I put you all in jail." The bakery closed for the day. After everything that had happened, In-ha couldn't focus on work. Her husband poured her a glass of water. She took it, her hands trembling. She regretted transferring her son to this school. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. Her husband hugged her tight. He couldn't just stay weak. Meanwhile, at the school, the little sister stopped the bullies. She was furious and kicked the chubby kid. She didn't care if she got hurt. She wasn't going to let them get away with this. When school was over, Jun-seok was suddenly stopped by his classmate. Young Cheol said he'd heard the conversation on that fateful night. It was clear that Jun-seok had invited the victim to go somewhere after school. Jun Seok was scared. He remembered it. To shut him up, he invited Young Cheol back to his house. He asked, "How did you know?" It turns out that Young Cheol had been following them. Jun Seok tried to act calm and said that he hadn't met the victim that night. To make the whole thing disappear, he gave Young Cheol a limited edition gift. He didn't know his mom had overheard everything. She was trembling. Her son had become a terrible person. She felt so guilty. Meanwhile, the teacher was talking to In-ha privately. He said that Sunho had had a girlfriend, but she'd suddenly dropped out of school. The aunt, who was standing next to In-ha, asked, maybe she was a victim too? They were surprised by her suggestion. The parents might have kept it from the teacher. Before going back, the aunt talked to the teacher privately. She wanted him to do his best to find out who had done it. She wanted him to pay for what had happened. In-ha didn't know that her son was in danger. Jun Seok's mom was standing by Sunho's bed. She wanted to pull out his breathing tube, but he suddenly woke up. He grabbed her hand. She was terrified, but it was just a bad dream. She looked at the CEO trembling. This has gone too far. At the same time, the family went to the hospital to visit their son. The little sister was heartbroken to see her brother lying there. The doctor told the family they needed to transfer their son. The hospital was overflowing. He said Sunho's chances of waking up were slim. In-ha was worried about her son's future. The next day, the parents went to the school to investigate. The dad took In-ha's hand as they walked up to the group of parents. The bullies were being questioned separately by the police. They insisted that it was just a game. The detective was watching their expressions. It was the chubby kid's turn. He admitted that he'd deleted the video. The detective asked, "Did the other kids tell on you?" This made the chubby kid feel betrayed. He said, "Wasn't Jun Seok the ringleader?" Angry, the chubby kid told on Jun Seok. The detective finally did something. He walked up to the chubby kid and questioned him again, but the lawyer sitting behind him interrupted. The detective yelled, "Be quiet. You've started down this road. Now you have to finish it." The chubby kid admitted that Jun Seok had ordered them to beat up the victim, and he had only stood there recording the tape. Right after the chubby guy left, it was Young Cheol's turn. His mom was super bummed because he was totally lying. He was covering for Jun Seok big time. As he walked past Jun Seok, he acted like he'd done his job. Jun Seok waltzed into the interrogation room all confident. The detective was cold and straight to the point. "You the mastermind, huh?" Jun Seok was like, "I tried to stop them." He even warned the detective, "You're pushing it." The interrogation was over, and the cop said, "We need some time to figure this out." The husband asked, "Did they apologize?" But none of the kids were sorry. The two returned home disappointed. In-ha noticed something super weird. Sunho never ties his shoes. Like, ever. So why were the shoes at the crime scene tied? To check her theory, In-ha went through her son's entire shoe collection. Not a single pair was tied. Those shoes were definitely fishy. She even remembered that Sunho wasn't wearing tied shoes on the day of the incident. Her husband said, "Don't jump to conclusions." But In-ha was convinced. She raced to the police station. The detective was shocked when In-ha asked for a fingerprint check. She pulled out the shoes her son was wearing. She said, "My son never ties his shoes. Someone staged this crime scene." The detective was like, "I see your point, but he couldn't just go taking fingerprints based on tied shoes." In-ha just sank into a chair. Another hope dashed. She cried out, demanding justice for her son. After she left, the inspector felt that what the mother said made sense. He told his officers to check the crime scene again. Meanwhile, outside the station, a reporter was waiting for In-ha. He was curious about the evidence she had. It sounded like her son was being bullied. In-ha was over it and didn't want the reporter's help. Back at the school, her husband was talking to the security guard. He wanted to know if the shoes were tied when they were found, but the guard said, "I don't remember." He thought it was just a mom thing. They'll suspect anything to protect their kids. Even her husband was thinking the same thing. On the way home, the dad saw a food truck. He was curious if they saw anything the night of the full moon. The food truck guy was like, "Yeah, a car stopped by, but it was so dark, I can't really remember." Meanwhile, the vice principal was reporting the results of the investigation. All the students' testimonies were confirmed. The principal wanted to put all the blame on the chubby kid. The vice principal, all smiles, was happy to do it. He warned the teacher, "Don't get involved." The teacher went back to his classroom, super bummed. Then, the bullied girl was waiting for him. She had something to tell him, but then, she remembered what her brother said. "Don't do anything without proof." The teacher was annoyed that she was being all vague. He yelled at her, but she said, "You're no different from them. You never cared about me either." At the same time, Jun Seok was standing outside Sunho's girlfriend's house. She was freaking out, seeing the bully at her doorstep. He hesitated, wondering if he should call her. Just then, Sunho's little sister showed up. She was shocked to see him there. Jun Seok said, "I'm just here to see your sister." But her sister was furious. She knew he was lying. He was the one who beat up her brother before. She used to have a crush on Jun Seok. But now, he was just a total jerk. Their aunt was worried when she saw her niece crying. She hugged her and tried to comfort her. The parents were still blaming each other, especially the chubby kid's mom. He'd spilled the beans about Jun Seok being the mastermind, and now she was the outcast. All the blame was on the chubby kid. He was furious because he felt betrayed. Just as he was about to talk to a friend, Jun Seok stepped in. Just do what you're told if you want to stay out of trouble. He's going to be the school pariah now. When young Cheol got home, his mom asked why he lied, but he kept denying everything. It made his mom feel terrible. So, she went to In-ha's house to talk. In-ha asked, "What do you want?" Young Cheol's mom was heartbroken. She told In-ha that she lost her husband and they've been through a lot together. But her son did something wrong. She was there to sincerely apologize. On the other hand, Jun Seok's mom was still trying to protect him. He told her that what happened on the rooftop was an accident, but he could tell she didn't believe him. Things were getting really bad between them. The principal was like, "Did you two fight?" But the mom said no. Then the principal dropped a bomb. In-ha went to the police station today. She wants them to check for fingerprints on her son's shoes. The mom was terrified and dropped her jacket. Her husband said, "What's wrong?" She remembered that fateful day. She'd gotten into a fight with her son and then dropped him off at school. But she couldn't stop worrying, so she went back. When she got to the schoolyard, she saw someone lying in a pool of blood. She ran over and gasped. It was Sun-ho. She wanted to call 911, but her motherly instincts took over. She called her son. The phone was ringing on the rooftop, right across from where Sun-ho was lying. She rushed to the rooftop. Jun Seok was sitting there, shaking, hiding in a corner. He was terrified because he had killed someone. "It was an accident, Mom." To protect her son, she staged a suicide. She took Sun-ho's shoes and placed them by the railing. She wiped away all the evidence. Then, calmly, she drove her son home. The next morning, Jun Seok's mom went to the bakery. She wanted In-ha to transfer her son to her father's hospital. It had the best equipment and could help him recover better. In-ha was hesitant, but the mom begged her to do it. It was like an apology. Meanwhile, the school sent the results of the bullying committee's investigation. There was a list of punishments, along with apology letters from the kids. In-ha was furious. The kids only had to do community service for 3 days, while her son was still in the hospital. It was all because of the principal. He'd bribed everyone on the school board. The teacher was annoyed, sitting with those guys. When the principal offered a toast, he didn't feel like eating or drinking. Sun-ho's little sister didn't want them to get away with it. She wrote a complaint and posted it on the school's website. At the hospital, Sun-ho was making good progress. He could move his hand again. His dad ran out to call the doctor. In-ha was so happy that she started crying and calling her son's name. Finally, after all this time, some good news. The doctor checked him over and said, "It's just a natural reaction. Only a miracle will bring him back." It broke In-ha's heart. She begged the doctor to save her son. She wasn't giving up on finding the person who did this. But her husband told her to stop again. She wouldn't let herself give up. Everyone outside had heard what happened. Her sister came over and hugged her, trying to comfort her. The principal found out his wife had been hiding things from him. He told her, "Just tell me everything. Our son is the only heir. No matter what he did, I'll protect him." His wife was over it. She was sick of his controlling ways. Jun Seok got into a fight with his mom and ran away from home. He remembered that fateful night on the rooftop. Sun-ho's girlfriend had a crush on him, and he was messing with her feelings. She got depressed and then went crazy. Sun-ho attacked him, and that's what led to the whole thing. By chance, on his way home, the dad saw Jun Seok walking alone. He offered him a ride. Jun Seok tried to refuse, but ended up going with him. He felt guilty about riding with the victim's parents. They got back to Jun Seok's house in a flash. Before the kid could leave, the dad said, "No one's perfect. If you own up to your mistakes, your life will be better." He also told him. Sun-ho moved his finger. Jun Seok was terrified. When his mom saw him back, she ran to him and asked if he was okay. He avoided her gaze. He said, "The victim moved his finger." His mom tried to calm him down. "That's not going to happen." Jun Seok was freaking out. He wanted to confess everything to Sun-ho's parents, but his mom stopped him. "What happened that day is over. You have nothing to do with it." The dad got home and found his daughter asleep. He gently picked up her laptop and checked it out. He was surprised that she had written a petition. Tons of people had read it. They all supported reopening the case. Everyone in the family was fighting for their son's justice, but he had been a coward, hiding from the truth. His daughter woke up and asked if he was okay. He was so proud of what she'd done. It gave him the courage he needed. The next day, the vice principal was making 3 kids write up their reflections. Suddenly, his assistant told him about the petition going viral online. He was furious and ordered the teacher to take it down, but the teacher couldn't. It was against the rules. The vice principal was going ballistic. He was used to teachers bowing down to him, but this teacher wasn't scared anymore. He was going to protect his students no matter what. Meanwhile, at In-ha's bakery, a bunch of parents showed up to bribe her. They wanted her daughter to take down the petition. In-ha calmly counted the money they handed her. Then, she said, "Take this money back." A moment later, the chubby kid's mom showed up. She was furious that someone had tried to bribe In-ha. Now they were turning on each other. In-ha had reached her limit. She grabbed all her pastries and threw them at them, then kicked them out. The petition had a huge impact on the students. But Jun Seok used it to his advantage, blaming everything on the chubby kid. Now, he was known as the murderer. It was so serious that the school board had to meet with the parents. The principal wanted them to take down the petition and forgive the kids. In-ha was angry that they weren't worried about their sons. Instead of trying to stop his wife like he had before, the husband stood up and yelled at those cowardly parents. It gave In-ha a boost of energy. Jun Seok's mom had also read the petition, but she acted like it didn't bother her. The reporter who had approached In-ha earlier was at the police station. He wanted to find out who was behind it all, but the cop wouldn't tell him anything about the case. That night, the husband went to meet with the parents. They wanted him to drop the petition. He flipped out, smashed everything on the table, and walked out. That was his answer. As he walked out of the bar, the dad ran into his student. He was fighting with the owner because he hadn't gotten paid. The dad tried to stop him, but the kid wouldn't listen. He didn't want his teacher involved in his life anymore. The teacher was furious and gave him 2 farewell slaps. Meanwhile, Jun Seok's mom had gone to the hospital. She was about to pull the plug on the victim to make sure he never woke up. But In-ha arrived just in time. From the outside, In-ha thought she was taking care of her son. The mom asked about the tied shoes. In-ha had never told anyone about that. She quickly explained, "Your little sister told her." After that woman left, In-ha called her sister to ask about it. But her sister had never told anyone. In-ha had a feeling that the mom was involved in the case. After leaving the hospital, Jun Seok's mom met the security guard at the bottom of the bridge. Turns out, the guard had seen Jun Seok and his mom at the crime scene that night of the full moon. The mom begged him to keep it quiet. She didn't want her son to get caught. The guard asked, "Why didn't you tell the police?" She lost it and said, "Just keep your mouth shut and I'll give you anything you want." And now, she was keeping her promise. The guard had Sunho's phone and diary. The security guard was bummed because she was lying. The victim hadn't killed himself like she said. Jun Seok was the real killer, and she was the one who planted evidence. She threatened him. "If he tells the truth, you'll be an accomplice too." The guard said, "I have a video from the night of the full moon. It's safe." She asked him how much money he wanted, but the guard wanted a peaceful life. He couldn't let her drag him down. Jun Seok's mom promised, "I'll never let the police know about this." After the mom left, the security guard saw a black car following him. He stopped the car, and it was the principal. The guard handed him the video and then disappeared. Jun Seok's mom was freaking out and speeding. A cop pulled her over, and she was scared, but they let her go when they realized she was the principal's wife. To clear herself, Jun Seok's mom called In-ha. She said that her husband had told her about the tied shoes. The cop investigating the case knew the principal. In-ha thanked her for helping her family. Just then, the hospital room door opened. In-ha's mom rushed in, worried about her grandson. She scolded her daughter for keeping everything from her. In-ha was already exhausted from everything going on. She didn't want to fight with her mom, but her mom kept pushing. In-ha snapped and told her to get out of the room. As a mom, she knew how hard it was for In-ha. Before leaving, she apologized and told her daughter to take care of herself. Jun Seok's mom finally came home. The principal was annoyed. "Why did you transfer the victim to a different hospital without telling me?" He wanted everything under his control. Meanwhile, Sunho's little sister went to see the chubby kid. She wanted him to prove that Jun Seok was the mastermind. If not, the chubby kid would be the one with the bad reputation forever. The chubby kid was annoyed. Go ask the girl who was ostracized. She was the one who got bullied the most by Jun Seok. Sunho was the only one who helped her. The little sister was furious. All those kids were jerks. At the same time, the dad went to the student's house. He regretted hitting him so hard. He found out the kid had to work extra jobs because his family was struggling. To get justice for the student, he went to the restaurant. He yelled and demanded that the owner pay the kid his full wages. Outside, the student overheard everything. His teacher stood up for him. For the first time, the student saw his teacher truly angry. The dad called the owner a jerk. The student was so touched that he started crying. It had been a long time since he had felt someone else's love. Right after he got justice for the student, the dad bought some booze and started drinking. In-ha noticed something was up with her husband. He said, "I'm quitting teaching." In-ha was surprised. He explained, "I couldn't protect my student. I'm a coward." In-ha encouraged him, "You're a good guy. Now, we need to find the real killer." The next night, the dad went back to the student's house. He found out that the student's sister was in the same class as his son. The student came home a little later and told the teacher to take the food. He said, "You don't need to pity me." But the teacher said, "I'm the one who failed. You're poor, but you keep going, unlike me. I'm always hiding from the truth." The dad apologized for hitting him. Then, he handed the student the wages he deserved. Before leaving, the student said, "My sister knows something about Sun-ho." Jun Seok's mom hadn't slept a wink since the incident. She kept seeing her son leaving on his desk, blood starting to drip from his arm. She would wake up in a panic, running to his room, but he would just be asleep at his desk. A new day dawned. In-ha went to Young Cheol's house to talk. Young Cheol's mom was surprised to see her. In-ha asked, "Is he lying?" But Young Cheol was still covering for the killer. He blamed everything on the chubby kid. In-ha knew from the kid's eyes that he was lying to her. Jun Seok and his mom heard about In-ha's visit. Jun Seok was confident. "Mom, don't worry about it. All the blame is on the chubby kid now. If he just transfers schools, it'll all be over." Before school started, the school board had a meeting. The vice principal told his staff to make sure the students didn't spread any rumors. The teachers were confused because the security guard was there. It was even weirder when the vice principal told everyone to praise the guard. It was a direct order from the board. After the meeting, the teacher went to ask the security guard about the security footage, but he said that the company had collected it and destroyed it. The teacher was bummed that the clue was gone. Back in his classroom, he wrote his contact information on the board. "If you need to talk about anything, call me. I promise to protect every one of you." This made the kids uncomfortable. Could someone tell the teacher about all the things they had done? Not only was the teacher starting to act, but the reporter showed up at the dad's house. He wanted to investigate Sun-ho's case, but the dad said no. He didn't have enough evidence. He said, "I'll talk to my wife and then we'll decide." The principal heard about the reporter investigating. He told his people to take care of it. They dug up the reporter's past. He'd been involved in a scandal before. Dealing with him would be a piece of cake. That night, the ostracized girl went to see Sun-ho's parents. She was sure Sun-ho hadn't killed himself. Actually, she had wanted to die that night. Sun-ho had encouraged her. "Keep going. Don't give up on life." In-ha was surprised by what the girl said. The bullies had been texting the girl horrible things. When she was about to walk out into traffic, Sun-ho's yell stopped her. He ran over to her. Seeing how upset she was, he gave her a book. It was a gift he wanted to give her. Those small gifts made her feel so much better. Her dark thoughts disappeared. He even asked her to meet him the next day. The girl's brother was furious that she wanted to kill herself. He yelled at her. She said, "I hate my life. Our family is broken. We're poor, and I'm a burden to everyone." The brother was pissed when he heard that. He stormed off, and the dad followed him. He wanted to stop him from beating up the bullies. They were the ones who had made his sister suffer. He said, "That's not the way to solve this. Only by listening and understanding your sister can you protect your family." In-ha was completely shocked when she read the text messages the girl had received. They were vicious and threatening. She shared her tough past. Everyone turned their backs on her and her sister. They had to take care of each other and get through it all. In-ha was grateful that the girl had told the truth. Ever since Sun-ho stood up for her, Jun Seok had been bullying him. But he was just watching from afar, telling everyone what to do. If they just followed his lead, school would be easier. In-ha didn't believe the girl at first, but the girl was the victim. After the conversation ended, the dad walked the two girls home. He thanked them for being brave and telling the truth. Their relationship had gotten a lot better. Meanwhile, at Jun Seok's mansion, the principal was furious after listening to the tape the security guard gave him. His son was the real culprit. He went on a rampage, smashing things up. His wife saw the whole thing. When his son came home, she asked him why he went to see the victim. She warned him, "Don't get too close to In-ha." Jun Seok was annoyed that his mom didn't trust him. She was the one who should be angry, not him. He was the murderer, and she was covering for him. Seeing his wife's strange expression, the principal asked, "What's wrong?" But she hid the fact that she had been arguing with their son. The principal said he wanted to take her and their son out of the country. That made her suspicious. He must know the truth. As soon as the principal left, she sneaked into the room to look for evidence. She was surprised to see the music player lying there, broken. Before she could check it out, the doorbell rang. It was In-ha. She asked, "Is Jun Seok home?" She was terrified. In-ha had something to tell her, and she asked, "Do you know that Jun Seok is the ringleader?" But the mom always protected her son. In-ha had been comforted by the mom's help before, but now she just found the whole family disgusting. The mom was angry and kicked In-ha out. As soon as she left, the mom asked her son, "Did you tell anyone about meeting the victim?" But he hadn't told anyone. Meanwhile, in the principal's office, he was meeting with the security guard. The guard said, "I threw the victim's phone away. All I have now is a copy." The principal was furious because he felt betrayed. He threatened the guard, "If you dare leak the video, you and your family will be going to meet the Grim Reaper." Just then, the guard received a text message. The principal had kidnapped his son. The guard was enraged and grabbed the principal by the neck, but he couldn't bring himself to hurt him. His son would be safe if he gave him all the evidence. As soon as he got everything, the principal went home. He calmly walked into his son's room. He started filling Jun Seok's head with twisted ideas. We're a powerful family. We've been born with money, so you don't have to fear anything. I'll take care of this." The next day, the dad went to the police station to file a report. The detectives thought the case was fishy, so they decided to investigate thoroughly. The police went to Anha's bakery to find her. They said, "Someone complained about you handing out flyers." It was the parents' doing. The aunt was furious and confronted the parents. She yelled at them, "If you keep this up, you're gonna pay." The teacher couldn't take it anymore. He said to the vice principal, "Jun Seok is the real killer, but you're covering for him. This place is rotten." His colleagues pulled him away to calm him down. Meanwhile, Anh went to talk to the teachers at school. As she passed the security guard's office, he called her in and asked her how she was doing. Then he gave her a cactus. She thanked him for the gift and took it home. After school, the little sister and the ostracized girl went to see the reporter. After telling him everything they knew, he promised to write an article revealing the truth. That night, on his way home, the principal remembered that he hadn't deleted the video. His wife had heard the video. She was shocked to hear what her son had done. The principal saw her holding the recorder. She was terrified and asked, "How did you get this?" He said, "The guard came to see me. He traded the tape for a bunch of cash." She was crushed. She had been fooled by her son. At first, she thought it was an accident, but based on the recording, Jun Seok was the real killer. The principal gave her the recording coldly. "If you don't say anything, no one will ever know about this tape." It was all Jun Seok's doing. He wanted to bury the truth forever. He would protect his son, no matter what. They agreed to keep the video a secret from their son. When Jun Seok came home, he saw his mom taking her medicine. He went to say hi, but she flinched back in fear. The principal saw everything. Meanwhile, Sunho's parents had found evidence. They saw the video of the car that had taken Jun Seok away. Anh was shocked when she found out the truth. She wanted to go to the police, but her husband stopped her. "They don't have solid evidence. We can't do anything with just a video." Later, he went to see the food truck owner who worked near the school. He confirmed that the car in the video looked like the one from that night. The dad begged him to testify. Seeing how sincere the dad was, the owner decided to help. Meanwhile, Anh went to see Young Cheol's mom. She told her everything she knew. Young Cheol's mom was shocked. It seemed like Young Cheol was hanging out with Jun Seok. When she got home, she tried to ask Young Cheol if he knew anything. He remembered meeting Jun Seok alone. Jun Seok had said Young Cheol was his best friend. So Young Cheol didn't tell his mom anything. He didn't know that on the night of the incident, Jun Seok had gotten angry in front of Sunho. He admitted to messing with Sunho's crush. Sunho went crazy and punched him. He threatened to tell the adults. Jun Seok flipped out and attacked him. They started fighting on the rooftop. The whole conversation was recorded on Sunho's phone. Meanwhile, the aunt went with the teacher to see Sunho's girlfriend's parents. But the mom wouldn't tell the truth. She stormed off, ignoring their pleas. Disappointed with the outcome, they went to drown their sorrows. They were both fed up with life. All the bad things kept happening to them. They started to understand each other better. Another day began. The dad got up early to cook for the family. Anh was sad looking at her son's empty chair. The dad encouraged her, "Eat up. We have a long way to go." The reporter called the vice principal and accused the school of covering up for the killer. The vice principal was furious. He threatened to sue the reporter. Right after he hung up, the reporter saw the dad going to the police station. He had a witness who saw Jun Seok's mom's car. Now they needed to find out the truth. The car was registered to the company, so they didn't have the right to investigate her. The dad was angry that the cops weren't doing their job. The detective was moved by the dad's determination. He promised to investigate this secretly. As the dad walked out of the police station, the reporter was waiting for him. He told him that his daughter had come to see him. She told him everything she knew. The reporter said he wouldn't write the story without the parents' permission. He also felt like something was off. If the article were published, the case would have to be investigated again. The dad agreed to let the reporter write it. It was a way to get justice for his son. Meanwhile, Anh went to the principal's house. She was there to pay the hospital bill for her son. She didn't want to take a single penny from them. Jun Seok's mom tried to persuade her, but Anh couldn't forgive them. The two mothers were on opposite sides. They both would do anything to protect their kids, whether they were right or wrong. After Anh left, the mom called the principal, worried. What if Anh has some kind of evidence? But the principal said, "Don't worry about it." Soon after, the police arrived at the principal's house. Jun Seok's mom was nervous. "Where were you on the day of the accident?" There was footage of her car near the crime scene, but the principal intervened. He asked if they had a warrant. Since it was a school incident, he would cooperate. The mom said she was just picking up her son, but she couldn't remember exactly what happened. The detective knew she was hiding something, but they couldn't push her further. Because of the pressure from the principal, they had to back off. The vice principal heard that the ostracized girl had spilled the beans. He yelled at her, "Why are you sticking your nose in this?" The teacher stormed into the office. He said, "Students, go back to class. I'll handle this." The teacher was ready to fight his superior. This attitude made the vice principal furious. He threatened the teacher. "You'll be sorry." That night, the dad met with the security guard in private. "Did you erase the footage from that day?" He didn't have any concrete evidence, but the guard's attitude made him think he was a good guy. "So, could you tell me the truth?" The guard felt guilty. He had gone against his conscience to save his son, who was addicted to gambling and drugs. But now he couldn't tell the truth. He realized someone was following him. The dad begged him, "Please help. Just have the courage to testify." But the guard refused. Before leaving, he said, "You don't think I can become a cactus?" Meanwhile, In-ha went to see the killer. She deliberately looked down at Jun Seok's shoes, which made him jump. She asked him point blank, "Did you meet her son that night of the full moon?" Jun Seok denied it. "I didn't meet him. He was following his mom's orders, not to reveal anything." In-ha begged him to tell the truth, but he wasn't scared because he had the principal's backing. Jun Seok's mom showed up. She was angry and asked what In-ha was doing. She warned her, "Don't ever bother my son again." She didn't care about In-ha's cries. On their way home, Jun Seok was surprised when his mom drove past the school. She was trying to create a fake alibi, so it would look like she went there. Suddenly, she saw the food truck guy. She guessed he was the witness In-ha had mentioned. Jun Seok noticed his mom was acting differently. She wasn't her usual gentle self. Her personality had completely changed. This was exactly what the principal wanted. As soon as his wife left the room, his son went to comfort Jun Seok. He said it was an accident, but he wanted his son to feel no guilt. He told Jun Seok that he wasn't allowed to trust anyone except his parents anymore. This would all be over soon. In-ha was walking when she saw a shoe store. She remembered all the times she and her son had gone there. It felt like yesterday. Meanwhile, the little sister was waiting at Sun-ho's girlfriend's house. She said that her brother had brought flowers, but the girlfriend denied meeting Sun-ho. She saw the girlfriend acting scared and tried to ask her some questions, but the girlfriend yelled at her. Just then, the girlfriend's mom came home. She was furious that someone had hurt her daughter. She didn't listen to the little sister's explanation and slapped her. In-ha was furious that her sister had been hit, but she couldn't fight her. It was late, and her daughter still hadn't come home. In-ha guessed she was with her brother, so she drove to the hospital. Her daughter was sitting next to her brother's bed. She was crying her eyes out, begging him to wake up. It broke In-ha's heart to see her daughter so upset. She went over to check on her. In-ha wanted to go confront that family the next day, but her daughter stopped her. "It was my fault this time. I didn't mean to, but I scared her." In-ha was touched by how much her daughter had grown up. The next day, the article about Sun-ho was published. It pointed the finger at Jun Seok and the principal. The principal went ballistic. The petition from the daughter had gotten over 15,000 signatures, but something felt off to In-ha. The principal called a school board meeting. They needed to deal with the PR crisis. The principal ordered them to attack the reporter. He had been in prison before. If the parents knew the author was a jerk, no one would believe the article, even if it was true. Jun Seok went to school as if nothing had happened, even though everyone was talking about him. People were giving him the side eye. The chubby kid tried to stir up trouble, taunting Jun Seok. He said, "Jun Seok is the real ringleader." But Jun Seok handled him calmly. Everyone looked down on the chubby kid. He was just a bully. But when the ostracized girl looked at Jun Seok, he felt a little scared and looked down. Jun Seok's mom was surprised that her son was so chill. She thought he should feel guilty, but the principal yelled at her and told her to go back to her room. The teacher was happy that the article had been published. The vice principal, on the other hand, was fuming. He yelled, "That reporter is trash." The teacher was shocked by the vice principal's words. The principal wasn't just going after the reporter. He had gotten someone to pressure the detective. His superior met with the detective and warned him, "If you keep investigating this school case, you might lose your job." An article about the reporter's past was published online. Public opinion turned on In-ha. The school held a parent-teacher meeting. Parents were saying, In-ha paid him to write that article. But some people still believed in In-ha. Even though she knew her son was wrong, Young Cheol's mom supported In-ha in finding the truth. Mean comments about Sun-ho's family were posted online. The dad quickly turned off the computer so In-ha wouldn't see them. But In-ha insisted on reading them. The dad rushed back home. In-ha was shocked. She couldn't believe they were blaming her family. The dad comforted her. "We have to keep fighting." Meanwhile, the principal met with the reporter in private. He wanted to bribe the reporter to make this whole thing go away. The reporter laid out his theory. His son is the one who pushed the victim, or you are covering up for the killer. The principal asked, "Are you after money?" The reporter said, "Who doesn't want money, especially for a big catch?" The principal laughed and pulled out a recorder. The conversation was being recorded, but the reporter wasn't a rookie. He had recorded the whole thing before coming in. He challenged the principal, "Try me." That night, In-ha and her husband went to see the girlfriend's parents. The mom was furious. Sun-ho is the real jerk. In-ha was confused. "Why is my son the culprit?" The parent was heartbroken. Sun-ho ruined my daughter's life. That's why she's afraid to go to school. The dad calmly asked, "What did my son do?" The mom yelled, "Sun-ho assaulted my daughter." They were stunned. While the mom seemed happy, the dad begged to see her daughter, but she refused. She continued to rant at Sun-ho. They kicked the couple out before things got out of hand. In-ha was devastated. On the way home, she asked her husband to pull over. He was heartbroken to see her so broken. He comforted her. Sun-ho would never do something like that. Meanwhile, Jun Seok's mom was at the school to pick him up. Other parents were trying to curry favor with her, but she didn't want to talk. Just then, Jun Seok came up to her. She subconsciously avoided him and got in the car first. Jun Seok noticed her attitude, but he acted like he was innocent. His mom hated that he wasn't even a little scared. She had heard the recording from the rooftop. That's why they had gotten into a fight. She stopped the car on the side of the road angrily and asked, "Why is there lipstick on your desk?" Jun Seok was scared because his mom was going through his stuff. He asked, "Why don't you believe me?" Suddenly, she remembered what the principal had said. "We can't let him know about the tape." Jun Seok stormed out of the car and started walking home. His mom rushed after him, but he ran away. When she got home, she overheard the principal on the phone. He had been following In-ha's family. She was terrified. Did In-ha find out what happened on the rooftop? The principal said, "I'm the only one who knows the truth." After his son came home, the principal said, "Get your study abroad application ready. We need to get you out of this mess." The mom was upset and turned to alcohol and cigarettes to drown her sorrows. She then tried to get rid of the lipstick she had found. The dad was confused. He didn't understand what she was doing. Her mind was messed up. She had lost her humanity. She was accepting the truth to protect her son. The principal was furious and tried to confront his wife. He threatened her, "Don't drag this family down with you." Jun Seok heard everything. Meanwhile, the teacher went to In-ha's bakery, but it was closed. He called the aunt and asked her to dinner. She was angry that the parents were spreading rumors about them. He apologized for not being able to stop them, but she wasn't blaming him. They were going up against the whole country. This made the teacher feel guilty. The kids felt safe knowing he was on their side. Just then, the husband called. He wanted to meet with the teacher right away. In-ha was surprised. She said nervously, "Do you want to ask him about today?" "Don't do that," In-ha pleaded. But the husband was firm. "I have to do this. I've chosen to believe Sun-ho." In-ha cried, heartbroken. She was afraid her son was the culprit. She just wanted to protect him. The husband said, "If we do that, we're no different from them." In-ha was miserable and locked herself in her room. The husband, determined to believe in his son, went to meet the teacher. The teacher hadn't seen Sun-ho's girlfriend since she stopped going to school. The dad asked him to check her attendance records. He wanted to confirm if what they said was true. Being an educator himself, he gave the teacher some useful advice. Before leaving, the teacher said, "The vice principal knows about the bullying. It seems the police told him." The source was compromised. The detective was furious. He reprimanded his officer for leaking information. Just then, the reporter showed up. The detective was annoyed that he was making things even more complicated. He warned the reporter, "Be careful. Don't put In-ha's family in danger." When her daughter came home, she was surprised that her mom was still sitting in the dark room waiting for her. In-ha asked her daughter about her brother's crush. "Why did you keep it a secret?" Her daughter completely believed in her brother. In-ha felt a little ashamed. When did she start doubting her son? Sun-ho was a good kid who always helped others. Meanwhile, on his way home, the husband stopped by the place where the student worked. He was surprised to see the student sitting in a corner looking sad. He said, "I came to check if you're working hard." He was pleased to see how much his students had grown up. The husband went back home happily. He gently went to his wife. In-ha apologized for losing her cool. "I should have believed my son." They embraced each other happily. The next day, In-ha went to visit her son. She happily told him all about it. Meanwhile, the teacher found out the date Sun-ho's girlfriend had stopped coming to school. Everything was starting to come together. The dad went back to Sun-ho's girlfriend's house again, but they didn't want to see him. Seeing his determination to find the truth, they gave him a chance. Her birthday is September 19th. At school, Jun Seok was fuming. He and his gang cornered the chubby kid and punished him. He threatened him, saying if he told the teachers, he'd make him disappear forever. Now, the chubby kid knew what Sun-ho had felt like. They always bullied him. Another storm was brewing for In-ha. The school had rejected the petition. In-ha went to the flower shop. The owner said, "Sun-ho is so happy." He bought flowers for his girlfriend, but it seemed he couldn't see her, so he went home sad. She remembered that Sun-ho had ordered a birthday cake that day. It was the same date as Sun-ho's girlfriend's birthday. In-ha rushed to the library to check. On his birthday, he had been at the library reading. The librarian remembered how excited he was, like he was waiting for something. At the same time, the detective arrived at the principal's house. They said, "We didn't find anything on the car's camera." Jun Seok's mom thought she was in the clear, but then the detective said, "We confirmed that the video was edited. It's missing 30 minutes. Where were you during that time?" Jun Seok's mom was offended by the accusing tone. The detective said, "You don't have to answer. We're going to investigate differently." She said that she had stopped the car there. She argued with her son, so she pulled over to settle things. The detective suggested taking Jun Seok's statement, but the mom stopped him. "My son doesn't have to cooperate. Besides, we've already helped the victim's family a lot." The principal heard about it. He said, "Those detectives are just setting a trap." She was worried that the police would go see her son, but the principal yelled at her, "Stay put. I'll handle this." The mom was so worried, she turned to drugs. No matter how often she called him, Jun Seok kept ignoring her calls. The first class started. Instead of teaching, the teacher played a video for the class. The students were excited that he was changing things up. He showed them a video of school bullying that had gone viral. So many kids have become victims of it. This made Jun Seok nervous. He tried to pretend to pay attention to his books so he wouldn't see the video. The teacher also interfered with the vice principal's plan. He was creating a "Say No to Bullying" campaign, but when he got to the solution, he told the students to go to their teachers and stay silent. The vice principal said, "This is a good way to teach students." But this time, it wasn't just the teacher. The other teachers objected. There were no punishments for the bullies. Because of these kinds of attitudes, the school was going downhill. That night, the dad went to visit his son at the hospital. Suddenly, he saw Sun-ho wake up. He was stunned and rushed over to hug him. After all that time, he was finally back. Tears streamed down his face, but it was just a dream. Sun-ho was still lying in bed, unconscious. The dad swallowed his tears. Just then, In-ha called. She had found proof that Sun-ho hadn't met his girlfriend on the 19th. This meant his son wasn't the culprit. Right after that, In-ha went to see the girlfriend's mom to explain. She said that on the girlfriend's birthday, her son had ordered a birthday cake, but the date was canceled. Sun-ho went to the library and read books until night. The mom was annoyed that In-ha was defending her son. In-ha confidently said, "The librarian remembers exactly what happened that day. Sun-ho didn't see your daughter that day." The mom was still skeptical. "You're making up evidence." In-ha said, "If you want the truth, go check it out yourself." As a mother with a son in the hospital, In-ha understood how other mothers felt. Even though it was hard, they had to take responsibility. Let's go back in time. Before his girlfriend's birthday, Jun Seok had been messing with her feelings. She was walking home, bummed out, when Sun-ho ran up to her. He asked her out on her birthday. Jun Seok saw the whole thing. He wanted to ruin their relationship, so he made plans to meet Sun-ho's girlfriend. The girl happily went to see Jun Seok, but he stood her up. Sun-ho was rejected at the last minute, and he was crushed. The girl was upset when she realized he was playing with her. Unfortunately, she caught the eye of a total jerk. Jun Seok never apologized. He was arrogant and didn't care about anyone. His mom yelled at him, telling him to stay home, but he wasn't scared. The principal had his back. Jun Seok was furious and yelled at his mom. She was shocked by his reaction. He said, "I hate Sun-ho. His family is always so happy and close. It makes me jealous." Meanwhile, In-ha met with the ostracized girl. She overheard Jun Seok breaking his promise to Sun-ho's girlfriend. After that, she stopped going to school. The reporter was also taking action. He went to see the security guard for more information. He learned that the security footage had been erased. The guard remained indifferent, pretending not to understand. The reporter left his contact information before leaving. As he walked out of the school gates, he saw the guard rushing somewhere. Then a black car followed him. The reporter quickly went to the police station to investigate the black car. He found out that the guard's wife had just passed away. He was heartbroken and called the principal, asking to see his son, but the principal refused. That night, the principal invited Sun-ho's dad to talk. He pretended to be sympathetic about his son being in the hospital. Facing his enemy, the dad calmly listened to everything the principal said. The principal wanted to settle things amicably, but the dad refused. He stormed out, ignoring the principal's threats. Right after that, he contacted the reporter. The reporter was surprised that the dad trusted him so much. Actually, he had a grudge against the principal. That's why he was investigating the case. The dad said, "Do what you have to do." Meanwhile, Jun Seok's mom was freaking out, looking for her son. He had run away from home that morning. Jun Seok had asked a homeless guy to buy him alcohol and cigarettes, but the part-time worker figured out what was up. He gave Jun Seok his money back. Jun Seok was angry and gave him more money to buy cigarettes. The worker mocked him. "This isn't your money. Take it back." Seeing Jun Seok's stubborn attitude, the worker wanted to punch him, but he stopped himself. He told Jun Seok to leave before he called the police. Jun Seok was humiliated and ran away. The principal was furious when he found out his son had run away. He yelled at his wife for not controlling him. Jun Seok happened to walk past In-ha's bakery. The aunt wanted to talk to him, so she blocked him, but he ran into the busy street. That night, the security guard called the dad and said, "I'm going to tell them everything." But he was hit by a car. The dad was worried when the call went dead. He feared something terrible had happened to the guard. The detective got a call from the dad. He was shocked to find out that the security guard wasn't at the funeral home. He immediately sent his officers to check. Coincidentally, a stranger got in a black car and drove off. The next day, the dad went to the police station to check in. The detective guessed that the guard had hidden the evidence somewhere. He told the dad not to act on his own. The dad was frustrated with the police's uselessness. The detective apologized for the delay. The police secured the footage from the accident. The driver had gotten out of the car after hitting the guard. Right then, the reporter showed up and started causing a ruckus. He yelled, "The principal is the killer." The detective grabbed him by the neck and said in a low voice, "The principal has eyes everywhere." The reporter understood. Meanwhile, the principal talked to his wife about the driver who had died. She was scared and asked, "Is this about us?" The principal was confident. "I took care of it." The guard's phone had disappeared. They couldn't find any evidence. His wife was shocked when she learned her husband had killed someone, but he kept denying it. The guard's death made the little sister sad. Even though he had lied, he was still a good guy. Last night, before the accident, he had tried to warn Anha's family. It was a shame he was so brutally taken down. Jun Seok went back to school after a day off. He was grumpy and surrounded by his buddies. The news of the guard's death had spread through the school. The killer was still on the loose. The vice principal wanted to hold a memorial service for the guard. This made the teacher suspicious. The dad went to the funeral. The guard had a missing son. Coincidentally, as he was leaving, the dad saw a bouquet from the principal. He stormed into the principal's office, furious. How could he kill someone? The dad was raging and grabbed the principal by the neck. The principal yelled, "What are you doing?" The dad snapped. He punched the principal right in the face. The staff outside heard the commotion and rushed in to stop him. The dad stormed out. He went to see the student who worked at the restaurant. The student was surprised to see the cut on the teacher's face. "Why did you fight someone?" He understood the feeling of using fists to solve things. His wife found out about the scene he made at school. In-ha encouraged him, "You should have hit him harder." The dad was sad that he could only rely on violence, but his actions gave In-ha strength. Their daughter was jealous seeing her parents hug happily. The police were racing to investigate the accident. The driver had 2 previous convictions. The detective knew he was the guy who did the dirty work for the wealthy. The driver was tight-lipped with the cops. He had planned everything to get away with it. The detective was scratching his head, looking at the victim's call log. Suddenly, he saw that the victim had been in contact with the principal. Soon after, the detective and his partner went to the principal's house. He welcomed them warmly. The detective asked, "What was the relationship between the principal and the security guard? Why did he have their number?" The principal glanced at his wife, who was trembling. He calmly said, "They were talking about work." The detective asked, "Why did he call the principal instead of the police?" The principal was ready for this question. He easily fooled the cops. Now it was the wife's turn. She said, "I called the guard to ask about Sunho." The police said, "The guard called in Ha's family before he died." The mother was worried that they knew the truth, but the principal stayed calm, as if nothing had happened. The wife was scared when she realized her husband's true nature. Meanwhile, Jun Seok went into the guard's office and started digging through his stuff. Sunho's little sister saw him. She gave him a chance to confess. "Are you the killer?" But Jun Seok pushed her aside and walked away. Unlike Jun Seok, the chubby kid understood what it felt like to be bullied. The girl encouraged him. "Tell your teacher the truth." The chubby kid felt a little ashamed. It was the first time the girl had been able to talk to a classmate. She was happy. Every day after school, the little sister went to Sunho's girlfriend's house to deliver letters. She read them all. She didn't blame her. The sister's kindness touched her. The next day, Ha went to the police station. They had found security footage from the station's lockers. Jun Seok's mom had put something in the locker. Later, the security guard came to get it. Ha was shocked when they realized they had been in contact. Meanwhile, the principal went home and couldn't find his wife. He was annoyed. He went into the room and saw her phone. The police informed him, "Your wife is now a suspect." The principal started to panic. The police asked her to come to the station the next day. A summons would be sent to her house. The principal threatened, "If you investigate this wrong, you'll be out of a job." He angrily threw his phone away. His wife was standing on the bridge, looking at the cold river, feeling a little hesitant. Suddenly, she heard her son's voice. That made her give up her plan. The next day, Jun Seok's mom went to the police station to be questioned. The detective asked, "Did you pay the security guard?" But she denied it. "That money was a loan I gave him to pay off debt." The lawyer sitting next to her intervened because the police were asking too many questions. The first interrogation was over. The detective was bummed because they hadn't gotten anything useful. Ha was sad that she hadn't been arrested yet. While talking to her husband, he suddenly remembered the gift from the guard. He had mentioned the cactus. The husband immediately emptied the soil of the pot. Ha was surprised to see her son's phone inside. They were both shocked when they saw the recording. Jun Seok was the one who pushed her son. Ha was horrified that a kid could be so evil. Not to mention Jun Seok's mom covering up for him. The husband took the evidence to the police. The detective listened quietly to the mom's confession. This was key evidence. There was no way to deny it. The phone also had text messages from the kids. The family was happy that they had finally found the proof. The killer would be brought to justice. Meanwhile, the mom was drinking herself crazy. She was going to leave the country. The principal was annoyed that she was falling apart. The next morning, he took his wife to the airport, but before they could leave, the detective called. The principal said, "Don't answer it. We're good once we're on that plane." Because he couldn't reach her, he called the principal. He was angry when he found out his wife had been summoned. The police had surrounded their house. The principal angrily called his superior to intervene. But since the detective had the recording, his superior couldn't get involved. The principal said, "Do as I say." Right after that, she spilled the beans to the police. She was there at the crime scene, but she blamed everything on the security guard. The guard had threatened her with the phone and blackmailed her. The detective was furious that she wasn't being truthful. She cried uncontrollably in the holding cell. Jun Seok was called in for questioning. He was terrified and looked over at his dad, who was sitting next to him. The principal had coached him on his statement. It was an accident on the rooftop. Sunho asked to meet me. He even denied bullying Sunho. The video of the victim getting beaten up was just a childish game. For now, they were released because there wasn't enough evidence. After leaving the police station, they bumped into In-ha. They felt guilty and didn't dare look at her. Even though they had evidence, the detective couldn't charge them. They needed more witnesses. Without them, the case would drag on. In-ha was disappointed that they hadn't been arrested. She swallowed her tears and was determined to find more witnesses. Her husband contacted the reporter for help. He gave him the recording. This time, they're going to pay. Soon after, an article revealing the case was published. The principal was furious and threw the paper down. But just one article wasn't enough for his daughter. Jun Seok went to school as if nothing had happened. This was exactly what the principal had told him. If he took time off, it would be an admission of guilt. Students at the school were talking about Jun Seok. The little sister hated him. She wanted to punch him, but she held back. The vice principal was still defending Jun Seok. He told the teacher to control the gossip, but the kids weren't having it. Jun Seok was shocked to find his desk thrown into a corner, covered in insults. The teacher called him over for a private conversation. It's best if you are homeschooled. But Jun Seok refused to admit guilt. At lunch, everyone ignored Jun Seok. He was the school's biggest embarrassment. Meanwhile, Jun Seok's mom was thinking about what her son had said. To protect her son, she went to see In-ha. She admitted it was all her fault, but her confession was too late. In-ha couldn't forgive her for hurting her son. She lost it and slapped her hard. How could you be so cruel? Even if you're begging on your knees, Sunho isn't going to wake up. The police had a new development. On Sunho's girlfriend's birthday, Jun Seok stood her up. So Jun Seok wasn't the one who assaulted her. The dad was surprised by this information. To get to the bottom of things, the detective questioned Jun Seok's friends. They were scared and confessed that Jun Seok was the ringleader. They had threatened Sunho, saying they would make the girl take the blame if he didn't go. The detective was disgusted with the kids' fake faces. Now it was young Cheol's turn. He confessed that he had overheard the victim asking to meet Jun Seok on the rooftop. They had been best friends, but Jun Seok had changed. It was too late to regret it. The principal wanted to keep the teachers in line. He said it was all an accident and that he was trying to cover it up. He wanted someone else to take the blame. The principal would be the sacrificial lamb. The teacher was angry. The principal didn't do anything wrong. If someone has to resign, it's you. The principal, sitting next to him, realized he was also at fault, so he prepared a resignation letter. The only condition was that the other teachers wouldn't be affected. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the little sister was happy to see her brother move his finger. She quickly called her parents. The whole family was ecstatic when Sunho woke up from his long sleep. He groggily heard his parents calling him. Their loving faces appeared before him. Even the doctor was surprised by the miracle. In-ha cried tears of joy as her son recovered. The good news spread like wildfire. The aunt was overcome with joy and immediately called her mom. Even the teacher couldn't believe it. The doctor ran some basic tests. Even though he could move his finger, he had no feeling in his lower body. The doctor reassured them. Sunho waking up is already a miracle. He just needs a few physical therapy sessions, and he'll probably walk normally again. The police were informed that Sunho had woken up, but it was too early to get his statement. They needed to wait for him to recover. Meanwhile, the detective went to the principal's henchman's house, but the jerk had run away before he could be arrested. At the same time, at the principal's house, the mom asked for a divorce, but she wanted to get custody of their son. The principal was furious when she made that request. He was the only one who could protect Jun Seok. He angrily smashed the glass he was holding. Jun Seok overheard everything. The next day, the little sister was happy at school. Everyone was congratulating her because Sunho had woken up. Only the bullies were scared. They knew they were going to be investigated for beating up Sunho. To avoid getting caught up in it, the kids decided to ditch Jun Seok. Jun Seok, once the king of the school, was now an outcast. He stormed out of the classroom. When the teacher came back, he was shocked to see nasty notes all over Jun Seok's desk. He ripped them off and went to the front of the class. It's not right to put Jun Seok down. He's guilty, but I feel bad for him because he's being ostracized. I hope everyone in this class can make some positive changes. The parents were notified that Jun Seok had dropped out of school. His mom was worried, not knowing where he'd gone. She kept calling him, but he wouldn't pick up. The principal was trying to get things under control. He told the vice principal to visit Sunho on behalf of the school. He also wanted to use money to pay for Sunho's medical bills. The parents were on board with that. They didn't want their kids to get caught in the crossfire. Soon after, the dad met with the vice principal, but he couldn't accept the money. He was furious and yelled, "They don't deserve to be teachers. If you want to apologize, then make this school a better place." This wasn't over yet. The reporter said, Jun Seok could get a lighter sentence because he's a minor. In-ha was angry. All they would do was pay a fine and get grounded. It wouldn't mean anything. The only hope was Sunho's testimony. If he could just speak up, they could put them behind bars. In his dreams, Sunho kept seeing his girlfriend crying, and him falling from the rooftop. It was all Jun Seok's fault. Suddenly, there was a loud noise in Sunho's room. His dad rushed over to find his son lying on the floor. He happily said, "I can move my leg." His dad told him, "Take it easy, don't push yourself too hard." That night, an unknown number called. It was a stranger. He knew he'd hired someone to murder the security guard. It turned out someone had witnessed the accident. He said, "If you want to keep things quiet, get ready to pay up." Meanwhile, the mom was running around looking for Jun Seok. He had disappeared that morning. She went to In-ha's bakery to ask for help, but In-ha flatly refused. "If you want what's best for your son, admit your guilt." The mom was devastated and went back home. Her mind wasn't right anymore. She started smashing things up, ignoring her husband's questions about their son. The principal ran to stop her. Jun Seok was at a convenience store. He was trying to buy alcohol, but the worker stopped him. Jun Seok challenged him. "Hit me," the worker yelled. "Get your head together." Seeing the poor kid, the worker pulled Jun Seok into the store. He wanted to offer him some food, but Jun Seok ran out. Right after that, he ran straight to the police station. The detective was surprised when the suspect showed up. He confessed, "I pushed Sunho off the rooftop on purpose." The principal and his wife arrived at the police station. The detective had called them there. The principal ordered his son, "Go back home. It's all a lie." But Jun Seok admitted he was the killer. He also said, "I staged the crime scene." The principal flipped out and slapped his son. Jun Seok ran out of there, furious. Sunho's girlfriend went to the hospital to apologize to Sunho's sister. Before she could even finish, she ran away. In-ha tried to follow her. Seeing Sunho's girlfriend crying alone, she went to comfort her. She gave her the warmest hug. Then, In-ha took her back to her family. Sunho heard that Jun Seok had disappeared. He asked his dad to go to the rooftop to check out what had happened that day. It was an accident. Jun Seok didn't mean to push me. Jun Seok was standing on the railing. He remembered talking to Sunho's girlfriend. She had lied to him, saying that Sunho had assaulted her. That had caused a huge misunderstanding between the two. After the accident, Sunho's girlfriend wanted to tell the truth, but the principal stopped her. He threatened to kill her if she revealed anything. Jun Seok was shocked to learn that his dad had intervened. Just as Jun Seok was about to jump, Sunho's dad called out to him. Sunho said, "It was an accident, so come down. Everyone makes mistakes. It's how you deal with it that counts." Jun Seok started crying when he heard these kind words. He felt relieved to be forgiven. The dad rushed over and hugged him. Jun Seok sobbed as he apologized. He deeply regretted what he had done. His mom ran to the school. She was crying, relieved that he was safe. The dad wanted to talk to her for a minute. Jun Seok obediently listened and waited behind. The dad asked her to tell the truth about the principal. He had arranged a meeting with the blackmailer. The thug said, "I was at the scene of the security guard's accident. I have pictures of you with the killer." The principal was furious and asked him to hand over the phone, as promised. He was ready to throw a big bag of cash to buy the evidence. When he got home, he checked the files on his computer. It was just a cartoon video. The principal was furious, feeling like he had been scammed. He was so angry that he smashed his computer. Just then, his wife came home. He asked where Jun Seok was, but she had taken him to a safe place. He yelled at her, "How dare you?" She was furious and slapped him twice. Jun Seok wanted to kill himself. "How could you be so heartless? I'm so over this jerk." The next day, the husband was woken up by his son. Sunho could move around freely now. The good news made his classmates happy. His sister said, "You can all come to the hospital to see my brother." The chubby kid snuck into the hospital that night, but he wasn't brave enough to see Sunho. But then, the aunt dragged him into the room. He bowed his head and apologized for what he had done. Sunho laughed and said, "Don't worry about it. The chubby kid was touched by Sunho's genuine kindness. Meanwhile, In-ha and her husband were dealing with the aftermath. The girlfriend's parents came to apologize. She had been terrified and lied. As parents, they understood each other's pain. Sunho's girlfriend went to the police station to give a statement. The principal had tricked her into coming to his house. He was the one who had assaulted her. The detective was furious that he had done such a terrible thing, but they still lacked the evidence to convict him. He was getting frustrated and didn't know what to do when someone sent him evidence. It was the blackmail video from the thug. He wanted the detective to put the jerk behind bars. With decisive evidence, the detective led his team to the principal's office. He issued an arrest warrant for murder and assault. The principal was furious that he was being arrested over a few photos. He kept denying the charges. As he tried to leave, the detective issued the arrest warrant. It turned out his wife had found evidence in his safe. The principal was enraged that she had betrayed him. The detective said coldly, "Your life is over. You're going to prison." After leaving the police station, Jun Seok's mom went to see In-ha. She told her, "My son and I are moving. We're starting over somewhere new." In-ha was happy that Jun Seok's mom had courageously faced her mistake. Before leaving, the mom returned In-ha's diary. She had found it in her husband's safe. Sunho was happy that his mom had found the diary, but actually it was just filled with poems he had written. Before leaving, Jun Seok went to see the convenience store worker. He was happy to see Jun Seok come to say goodbye. The kid had grown up. The next day, Jun Seok's mom went to visit the principal. Seeing him in a prison uniform made her shudder. She went there to file for divorce. She and her son were going to move away. There was one more thing Jun Seok had to do. He went to visit Sunho before leaving. He sincerely apologized for what he had done. Before leaving, Sunho handed Jun Seok the diary and told him to see him again soon. After a long time of recovery, Sunho finally returned to school. Everything had changed for the better. The guilt that everyone had felt was gone. Time healed the wounds. Learning from mistakes and growing up made them better people. That's the end of the movie. Thanks for watching our movie review. Hopefully, this gave you a new perspective on the film. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the latest reviews. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.